Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series where we bring together the most global. We bring together global leaders to talk about their careers and the career trajectories and the U-turns, detours, and all those kinds of things. And today, I want to welcome my dear friend Darcy Miller, who we worked together for years and years at Martha Stewart. She is a designer, entrepreneur, and author, best known as the founding editor of Martha Stewart Weddings, a leading voice in all things celebration. She built a brand that empowers creativity and joy in everyday life, from best selling books to bespoke concierge services. Her journey is a masterclass in turning passion into purpose. And with that, I say, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Wow, you're hired. You're my new publicist.
Oh,
Thank
God,
you
I
for
love
that
that.
introduction, Ron.
I studied that over and over again before we did that. So, prep is always good. I see Brent Ridges here. Hey, Brent, how are you?
Oh, hi, Brent.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. This show is based on people's careers. And Brent, if you're listening, I want you to be on the show. So I'll just say that. We started this show based on a person's career, and how do you start from here and you end up here. So we always want to start with giving this kind of an insight into your career. How did it go from here to where you are today?
Right. Well, although I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur, I guess I was because I grew up in New York City. And when I was in seventh grade, I would go to the bead store and I would sell earrings to this little store on Madison Avenue called Stone Free for Kids. I would go and put them in little Ziploc bags. And then I went to Penn, and at Penn, I had a party favor. I would make t-shirts that I would design and sell them in the quad or fraternity parties. Um, and I had a party favor business one summer. And so, I was always doing these entrepreneurial things, although I never thought of it as having a business. I was just doing some fun, creative projects. And, my parents told me I had to get a real job for experience before I had my own business. And
Yes.
so I figured, oh, I worked at this startup, a new magazine that was starting up. And I felt like I would do that for a year or two and then do my business. And 35 years later, I finally started my own business.
Was that startup Martha, or did
Yeah.
that come?
No, that was Martha. It was my first job out of college, my first real full-time job, and it was a new magazine. I think I was employee number 11. I was the editorial assistant, and which meant I did everything from answer phones to dye Easter eggs to you name it. And so I thought, as I said, I thought I was going to be there for a year or two, and it was a startup. So who knew?
Right.
The magazine could have been a year or 2 and then folded, but, it didn't. It
It was the most amazing
went the
place.
other way.
It went the other way. Yeah, it's the most amazing place to work. Martha was in Dubai a while back, and we talked, and I said, of all the jobs I've ever had, that was the most inspiring job ever. It was a pleasure to go to work because being around so many creative people and talent across the spectrum, it was
Right.
just an amazing place, and it was like an incubator for talent. So as you have gone through that, and then you decide to pull out on your own. Now I tried this earlier. Now I had the corporate side to do this. Was the
Right.
transition easy to move
Well, I
to?
feel like I got lucky because my brand now, Darcy Miller Designs, is all about celebrating life. And
Okay,
it's something that I've always had a passion for and that I've always done. And so I hadn't officially done it as a business, but the timing is right. There were changes at Martha and Meredith. The magazines were switching over to Meredith. And so there was it seemed to be the right time to make the move. And I had, had always wanted to do a book. And actually, that video that you saw in the beginning was my book, Celebrate Everything. And, it wasn't that I was planning my next move. It was more that I wanted to do a book because I had posted all these parties and I'd photographed them all, and I thought it would be fun to put them all in a book. And so It just was like kind of a natural evolution. I feel lucky because um it just the timing just seemed to kind of fall into place. And then from that, you know, as soon as I did my book, I started to get asked by companies to do content, and then I started to do product, and so it just evolved very naturally, as opposed to me saying, okay, what is my business going to be, you know?
Mm, okay. But you know, I love the concept of celebrations because
Right.
it's totally different. Because when you talk through that whole concept of celebrations, not just a party planner or event planner, those
Right.
kind of things, that kind of anchors it into a new space.
Yes, and I think my brand is really about bringing joy to life and
Yeah,
celebrating life,
yeah,
and then that could mean in a many different ways, whether it's for an event or it's for um, we have a lot of content. We have ideas for what to do for the tooth fairy,
yeah,
and you know simple ways to make every day special
yeah,
and make life special, whether that's the big occasions or it's the everyday. And we'll have put templates on our website that are, as I said, templates for just um making nice things for friends or doing something special for yourself, or it's a Mother's Day template that
right,
like helps you
yeah,
make a card. So
yeah,
and I think that you know whereas some people say, they go to business school or they say, I want to start a business. Where's the hole? Where's the hole in the market?
yeah.
I feel like I went the other way, which is I always liked celebrating life, and just naturally I did these parties, I photographed them, and my brand was evolving without trying to start a business. I
I see.
wasn't
Okay.
trying to do it as a business.
So you did anti MBA thought process.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm
I
just gonna
mean, you
it just
know,
go ahead.
I guess in some ways there's certain things that you think about, like a real business, like how do you staff it and how do you
Yeah.
um, build it. But again, I I feel lucky, as you said, about working at such a creative place, that I have always been a creative and I've been able to make a career and a business out of it.
Mm. What was the inspiration for all of that? When you think back to, you said 30 some, has it been that long? Oh my God.
I graduated in 91 and it
Yeah.
was my first job out of college.
Whoa. Okay. Because I
Not
started.
to date myself, but,
Yeah, we're cool. We're cool. You're in a safe space here as you're talking
yeah.
about that. So when you look back at that, I'm sure there were rough spots, and you were trying to figure out the corporate side and the transition over. Who was an inspiration? Who kind of kept you grounded? Was there anyone that kind of said that you went to when there was kind of a roadblock or whatever?
I don't think, of course, there's important people in my career.
Yeah.
Obviously, number one, my parents, who instilled this in me, this love
Yes.
for celebrating and being an entrepreneur and supporting me. And, Martha, of course, was a mentor. But it wasn't, as I said, it was a funny thing because it was just kind of organic. It's not like when things were changing around at Martha, it's not like I went and asked 10 people,
Yeah.
do you think I should do my own business? What do you think? Although I will say a lot of my friends and many people over the years have said to me, you have to do your own thing. You have to, you know, I love your illustrations. There must be a way to monetize having you help with events and share your ideas. I feel like I had a general support
Yeah.
from friends and
Yeah.
other people in the business, but it wasn't like someone came to me and
Yeah.
said, "Okay, it's time."
It's time. As,
Yeah,
as if, as if it's that easy. I can just flip a switch and I walk out of corporate, and now I'm doing all these other things, right?
yeah, exactly.
What was the biggest challenge you faced in making the transition over to the entrepreneurial side?
You know, I would say, and this is a good problem to have, but the biggest challenge I had is how to focus what I'm doing.
Okay.
Because, and again, I came from an omnimedia
Yeah.
environment, but because I'm an illustrator and I like to, celebration means helping with the event, it means, again, content, video. I have a lot of experience with TV. The biggest challenge for me was, what is the business going to be?
Uh-huh.
Like, am I gonna is it really a website? Is it really, um, products, and what do you do first, second, and third? And of course, you want to do everything, but how do you structure it? And I would say, as someone who is very motivated to do a lot of things, the reality is you have to prioritize
Yeah.
because you can't do everything
Mm.
in phase one. And I think the book, for me, many people said, "Oh, don't write a book. Books are over. Just put the content online."
Yeah.
But I felt, for me, maybe I'm old school. It was really important for me to do the book as to kind of establish what
I
my
know.
brand is. And, I definitely, as kind of you mentioned before, I didn't want it to be called, parties from Darcy, or because my brand really isn't about a party. It's about finding ways to bring joy to life for you and for you to bring joy to other people. And that happens through, bigger celebrations or everyday celebrating, leaving someone a Post-it note
Yeah.
that's, we have
Yeah.
these Post-it, decals that we, partner with Chasing Paper, but, like, it's about making people feel good. And
Mm.
so, the book, for me, like many people say, "I love your book, it's so happy. It inspires me. I pull it out all the time." And so for me, that was important, as a way to kick off the brand.
So when Heidi and I came by at your grand opening, we posted those photos, and I got a lot of folks from Dubai and the Middle East, and they said, "Oh my God, I love the concept. I need to visit it." So all the links are going to be inside of the our post. And Darcy's company is going to be global. So if you need help in Dubai, Middle East, or wherever it is, APAC region, all of those places, be sure and contact her. But we'll provide all of the information as a result of that.
Yeah, and one thing that I would say about that is, we did in the beginning, we started with the book and content on our site and our Instagram and partnerships, but I always missed, kind of working with people, that service part. And at the magazine, we help with real weddings. And one of the things I've loved about this new part of our business, Celebration Expert, is that I can help someone wherever they are. We're not your party planner, but if
Yeah.
you're having an event or celebration or something and you want to, I consider myself somewhere between your fairy godmother, your shrink, your creative inspiration. Um, that it's been really nice because we've had a lot of clients who are not based here, and
Yeah.
you realize that you can really give people ideas, inspiration, and help them no matter where they are.
Yeah. So I sent all of my friends in the Middle East the link to this to be sure and listen in because we'd love to have you over there,
Oh,
to
yeah,
work
I'm
it,
ready.
to work on a big project. How did you overcome doubt? When we decide to make the journey from corporate and we said we're going to try this, there's always this self doubt whether this is going to work. The anxiety comes in and all those kinds of things. How did you handle that?
Um, I'm definitely someone who has a lot of self-doubt. So, and
We
I
all
think,
do.
and I think that that's part of, if you're ambitious and you want to try new things, if you're never trying something new, then you're never doubting stuff because you're just
Mm.
doing what you know.
Yeah.
And so, um, I think for me, I handle self-doubt through, um, communication with others, and whether that's with, our team or, friends. Like, I have to say that we, around the office, we're very collaborative, so we'll be coming up with a new idea, we'll be talking, and it's never it's very, as I said, collaborative. So we'll be talking about an idea and I'll say, I don't know, is this good? Would normal people do this? I call them normal people because, like, for us, for
Yeah.
me
But
to
mine's,
get a
yeah.
champagne bottle to look good, I mean, let's see, I have this on my desk. So when we make, we put a personalized label and we, do we change the crest. And so whenever we're doing ideas, I do um push myself to say, is this really, you know,
Mm,
something that a normal person, and the flip side is this special enough? Is this, um, you know, and I think that that's what also that doubt helps your product to become better
mm,
because if you weren't doubting it, you would just do something and let it go. Doubting it lets you really push it to the next level,
uh,
and I think very something about you know, my brand, although I would say our brand is that we're very, when we do a project, there's a lot of layers and there's a lot of details
yeah.
and there's a lot of surprises. So it's that doubt that helps push things to the next level.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that you said I always have doubt, self-doubt. We always go through that because when we talk about careers, we figure that, and we look at people, and we look at you here, and we think of Darcy Miller, celebration expert. There was no doubt. It's okay. It's okay if we. It's okay if we have that, and we have to work through that.
Right. And anyone who says that CEOs or, companies, it just seems like everything, what you see is the stuff that is being put out and is the
Yeah.
success. And you see the company, you don't see, all the struggles or all the things that you were trying to figure out what to do. And
Behind it.
yeah. Um, like it's so funny because this kind of is connected to what I say to couples when they're planning weddings and parties. I say, your guests only see what's there. They don't see what's not there. So when people are like, oh, I really want to do the slip covers on the chairs, but it's an extra X $1,000, I say, no one is going to go to your wedding and say, why weren't there slip covers on your chair?
Yeah.
So I think it's the same with a business. Although I would like to be doing 30 other things right now, there people are only seeing the great things we're doing. They're not seeing the things that we're
Yeah.
not doing yet. And so I think that self-doubt just helps push you forward.
Hmm. When you talked about the growing up as a child, as a kid, and you were selling at Madison Avenue, all of these kind of little trinkets and all of that. Did you realize? Did you figure then that you wanted to do something beyond a job? Although you went to, Rhode Island School of Design and all of that, did you kind of get an inkling there that there could be something here once I
Oh,
figure?
I wish I went to Rhode Island School of Design. I actually went to University of Pennsylvania,
Oh, you did.
and
Okay, sorry
and
about that.
I actually felt like I wanted to go to art school, but I ended up going to Penn, and I said, well, after I go to college, would like to go to art school and then, start my own business. But, then I started at Martha Stewart, which was kind of like going to art school, business school, and having a job all at once.
All at once, yeah, yeah. It was an MBA. It was an MBA in design.
Exactly.
Was exactly
Exactly.
what you went through. So I apologize, for that because the vast majority of people that work there came from RISD, and that's
Totally. I was
yeah,
the odd mom. I was the odd man out.
yeah. So when you think of you talked about entrepreneurs and you talked about the CEOs gravitating towards this, what advice would you give a person in an organization today that's struggling? They're not really enjoying what they're doing, and they may be thinking of doing something else, but the self-doubt comes in and all of these kind of mind games come to fruition.
Right.
What advice would you give them?
I mean, I think for me, there's kind of two different answers here. One about if you're not enjoying something, then you get out.
Yeah,
And I feel so lucky with my career because I have since day one always enjoyed what I did and never thought of it as work. And I think
yeah,
it's very unique to if you can think of, and I don't know what the exact expression is, but like if you enjoy work, then you never work a day of your life or whatever, you know. But I really feel like I look forward every day to going to work, and not to say that there's some days you'd rather not sleep late or
Yeah,
you know, stay at the beach or whatever it
yeah.
is. You know, like work is work, but I do feel like days fly by, and
Mm.
sometimes when we're sitting around the table and talking about this recent job that we did for Jet Puff um, marshmallows, and they asked us um, to kind of create content around having them replace Easter egg dyeing, and how do you dye them? And
Oh,
when you sometimes sit around and you're thinking, okay, for work right now, I am figuring out how to make a marshmallow look like an Easter egg, and figure out what works for content and what works for, as we say, normal people, but
yeah.
is also creative and also wow.
Mm.
Like, I get lost in the conversation because, and I surround myself with other like-minded people. So I think enjoying work is important, but the other part to this about, feeling like you might want to switch jobs and worrying about what the next thing is, I feel like, especially for this generation, like, don't don't worry about what, you have to be in something for a while,
Yeah.
and you have to give it a chance. And I know
Mm.
maybe 35 years was longer than than most people, but things don't happen overnight. And
No.
I think I hear from some young people, because I mentor, or a lot of, people who reach out to me or say, will you talk to my daughter or son? Or, people feel like, oh, well, I haven't grown. I've been here for a year and I
Yeah.
haven't gotten a promotion. Like, you have to be, you need to, like, really relax, and, like, things don't happen
Yeah.
in 5 seconds, and if you give it enough time, then you do grow, and
Hmm.
companies grow.
Mm.
I feel lucky because I was at a place that had so much potential to grow, because it
Yes.
was a
Yes.
startup. And in this business, I say to the people who work with us, it might seem like in 6 months you're kind of doing the same thing, but the reality is being at a new place gives you the chance to also make the job what you want it to be. Like, when I started, I was the assistant. So I answered phones, I ordered the supplies, I dropped off props. I mean, I would do anything, and everything for a year. It's still till the day I run to the deli, I get, and I think that some people feel like, well, at this job, I need to clean, I have to organize the closets. I love to organize the closets, and I still organize the closets. But I think that that would be my advice to people,
Mm.
and a younger person who's, starting their career or is mid-career, is just, make it what you want it to be also. Don't
Yeah.
wait for it to come to you. You
Mm.
know, I said to Martha, "Oh, you're on the Today Show?" I know friends who work in fashion offices, so I would pull her clothes. No one said to me, "Can you dress Martha for the Today Show?" But I was like, "I'll get her some sweaters," and, and then I started to kind of help with style. Then I became the style editor, you know?
Mm.
So, I would say you also have to be, um, be part of making the job what you want it to be, with what, well, also you're not letting go of the things that you don't love
Yeah. Yeah.
that are part of your job.
You started there at the lowest level, probably on an org chart, and you rose to, was it
Oh,
SVP,
yes,
EVP, or
I was the lowest level,
you
Rob,
were lowest level? I mean, but that's cool.
but
And
I
you,
never thought of it as the lowest
well,
level.
no, I say lowest level. I'm thinking in
Yeah,
terms of org design, and that,
yeah,
yeah,
yes,
that was the level that came in.
yes, I was the editorial assistant.
Yeah, so you came in at that level, and then you rise all the way to the top, and you're
Yeah,
heading up Martha Stewart Weddings. That's a huge trajectory. What did you take from that to now inside
right.
of my own team and building my team out?
Right. Well, it's funny because because I'm a hoarder and a scrapper. I have all my business cards from Martha Stewart.
Are
So I
you
was an editorial assistant, a assistant editor, a senior associate editor, a senior editor, the weddings editor, the editorial director, um, and now
yeah,
I'm the CEO, but I'm also the chief bottle washer, and
yeah,
you name it. And so I think for me also, titles don't aren't a thing to me. Like, I
yeah.
never felt like I wanted another business card or another title. I think it was
Okay,
more that I wanted to grow, and I wanted to take on more responsibility,
okay,
and I wanted to be, um, it wasn't that I so much about the title as it was about I want to run this, or it was about kind of what my job description was. And,
okay.
part of that was maybe my, ambition, but part of it was also with any company you work for, part of it is what you make it, and part of it is what kind of company you're at. I was able to grow because there was no structure when you start a
Oh,
startup. So we didn't have a wedding business. We didn't have a TV show. So as soon as we had a wedding magazine, although when I was 25, Martha said to me, I'd worked with Gail on the first wedding magazine, and then they said, "Oh, we're gonna switch you to be the wedding editor." I was like, "I am single. I have no boyfriend. I know nothing about weddings. I do not want to be the weddings editor." But and I
who am
remember
I? Who am I to do this?
exactly. I'm like, I don't know why someone would trust me to pick out their wedding dress, but I remember they said to me, it's all the things you like. It's fashion, it's food, it's entertaining, it's jewelry, it's travel. There's almost no category. Insurance, I mean, you name it, every cat with a wedding, every category is touched in a wedding.
Wow.
And it's a big business, and it's very people oriented, and it's creative. And so um a little bit was needing luck along the way to get
Mm,
to a place, and
hmm.
then me making throwing myself into weddings, although I did not was not married. I threw myself to learn everything, and to push what things were. Like,
Right.
weddings in 1995 were not personalized the way they are. And
Today.
I was recently with Rebecca Thus, who worked with me at weddings, and is,
Hey, Rebecca.
oh my God, Rebecca is a genius upon geniuses. Now we're working on some projects together, and it just is my happy place. And
Yeah.
one day she said to me, "You know what? Normal people, when they're doing a project, go from here to here in a straight line. You and I go here and here and here, but at the end,
No.
our where
You
we
still
end up
end
is
up
up
there.
here." And I think that that's how we approach weddings, because we dug into who you are, what you're, and we added all these personal details, which really didn't exist so much in weddings. You had your bouquet, but
Yeah.
no one was doing dessert buffets based on your favorite dessert from when you went for an ice cream
Oh,
sundae on
wow.
your date, and so I think that we had the chance to really have an impact on weddings. And
Mm.
then, of course, the incredible team and Martha, and, the machine of Martha Stewart.
Yeah, it was an incubator of talent. But you know what interests me, connecting to that particular story, we want you to be the head of of weddings, and you talked about the deficiencies that you had as it relates. I'm not married. I don't understand. I've never gone to a wedding, and all of those. But you said, you know what? I'm going to try it anyway. So, what do you think was there to say, you know what? Go ahead and try this. You've done this, and go ahead and try it. Was there an anchor there that says, you know what? Push forward, stop the BS, and move forward and do it.
I don't know. I mean, I think that in some ways Martha was right that I like all those things. I
Yeah.
like entertaining, and that, as you were saying about it being creative, the company being creative, I'm a creative at heart. So it was just a creative process, and you cannot not acknowledge the incredible people and who worked at Martha Stewart.
It was.
And I would say that that's been my number one struggle with my business which is hiring, because I was at Martha Stewart for so long, and you think everyone is a passionate creative, a hard worker, a kind person. These are all things that I look for when I hire, and you realize that not everyone in the world has that passion,
Mm.
has that, to get the ribbon the exact right color. The we all thrived on it, and we shared that. And
Yeah.
as I said, like, you spend a lot of time at work, and as talented as someone is, the for me, it's super important who they are as a person.
Mm.
Kind, good people. No one is worth worrying about that causes a lot of tension. And I will say, Ron, as I look at you, and we won't dig into this, that we know there were people issues along
Yes.
the way, like any company and like anyone. That's the nature of working. There's
Yes.
always, that's life, the
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
I think that um have, you know, I kind of wait for the people who are the right people, which again has
Yeah.
been a challenge, because I don't just say, "Oh, this creative director is talented. I see their work. Let's bring them on." You
Yeah.
know, I care that they're passionate. They're going to be good to the team, and they're going to be a good team player. And you know, so I would say that would be one of my challenges.
Yeah, well, you talked about the other side of working, working at Martha Stewart during that time. I appreciated the challenges. I love problems. I love people would come to the office and sit there and talk for
Oh,
hours,
yes. I
hours on it.
came to with a lot of problems.
But
Yes.
but it was always welcome for me because I love problems because I love finding
Right.
solutions to those problems. So as you venture out and you into this new area of celebrations, how do you stay ahead of the curve? Because I think what you're doing, and I saw this when I was over at your offices, you've broken new ground as it relates to events. And I say events here, and then you flip it over to celebrations. How do you stay ahead of the curve of new things that are happening in celebrations, or I'm going to say events?
Right.
But you move beyond events to celebration, celebratory kind of approach. How do
Right.
you how do you stay ahead of the curve to
I don't know.
learn what's new?
I don't really think about seeing what's out in the industry. I
Okay.
think about what I'm doing, who the client is, who, and making it personal. And that, I think that is what pushes us. I mean, I wish you could see the stuff on my desk here. I mean, I unfortunately I'm growing out of this office, but we had there was an event for Ruth Bader Ginsburg a few years ago. So we made these cookies. And I don't know if you
Oh,
can see.
you
So
see that well.
I have my RGB cookie here, and I have a stack of these chocolate bars, which have evolved over the time, and we do these for our clients. This was a bride and groom who just got engaged,
Mm.
and we have their dog on it. um, this was for Whitney of the company Bumble. So we had a bumblebee. Someone was having a
Wow.
baby, so they
Wow.
hired us to do. I think that we just think about, this was Joel Embiid who was getting married. And so we get into the details. So
Yes.
his fiance, we asked for a picture of her dress so she could be in the dress. Um, these were for a bunch of guys who were having a 50th birthday and, playing golf. And you can see we've got their dog
Wow.
on the
Wow.
back. And
Yeah.
so I think that, you know, this one was Carly Kloss. Someone had a baby shower for her. So we found the picture of her at the Met party and drew her in that. And so I think what inspires me and us to to always stay ahead and do the next thing is getting inspired by who we're hired by.
Okay.
It's,
Okay.
we really, when we have these clients for Celebration Expert, we give them this huge questionnaire about who they are, their favorite things, how they want to feel. And
Oh, okay.
we take that. And so it's not that we say, "Oh, you're getting married. Here's 10 things you can do." We first
Yeah.
have a download from them, because we're not going to give, you know, we're not going to ever give two clients the same
Yeah.
deck, although
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
probably not a good
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
plan. And that's why we do have things like our books and our products, and because something or in our content on our site, our downloads, something has to be not service oriented. But I would say for our high end service business that we get really into it, and
Yeah.
sometimes we get too into it.
Yeah, I love that approach, diagnostics, because you're trying to understand the two people or persons or whatever it is, and learning more about the event as opposed to coming in, getting an order, taking an order, and say one, two, three, cookie cutter, and we move beyond that.
Right. And so even though we've drawn things like this was one for someone who had a garden, and so the and grew tomatoes, so they sent me what they grew and I drew it, and then we made a print out of this that we put on other things. So I think ultimately that gives the end result a wow. And especially when it's the illustrations, which can be whimsical, and um
Mhm.
there's still this element of a wink or a surprise. This one, we know more about this guy Nathan than most people, than his friends.
Whatever, though.
It's his 80th birthday. You can see in the print, it's all the things he likes: Tootsie Rolls, and football, and chocolate chip mint ice cream, and cotton candy, and pumpkin pie. It was like, for us, we don't just draw an 80 and put
Mm,
a birthday cake in his hand.
exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
anyway, that's kind of, I think, what keeps us ahead. We're
Yeah.
inspired by, and also I like to be out there. I like to see things in terms of, a new florist, a new restaurant, a new
Mm.
um, bakery. I think that helps. Not that I'm necessarily looking for an idea, but I'm getting inspired by
Yeah.
businesses, because we also, as part of Celebration Expert, we recommend services. So we'll say, here's three people who do cakes.
Okay.
Elizabeth May, who can do a cake that's with charms on it, or
Mm.
this person can make you personalized cookies. And so, and that's one of the things also I love, being able to help other businesses, and especially the small businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. That's unique that you said that because you're bringing other people into your universe who may not have had the opportunities to reach that level, but
Right.
the product is something that would fit for this particular client.
Yeah.
So
Like,
you're helping to grow other businesses.
well, we try, and especially, as I said, we have a column called Meet the. So it's meet the caterer, meet the baker, meet the, and they do a quick interview, a couple questions that we post, and then we post them on Instagram. And sometimes we look at what their following was when we posted, and then 3 days later, and you can
Uh,
see, or one time I featured Frosted by Nava, who started frosting cakes during COVID, and she's amazingly talented. And then I got a press gift from a big company, which were her cupcakes, and I posted them, and then the person messaged me saying, "Oh, we send them as a press mailing. We found them from your Instagram." And so
wow.
nothing makes me happier than being able to help other people, or
Mhm.
whether it's through supporting their business or helping them through a charity, or
Yeah. Yeah.
um, like for LA, we were talking a lot, other than just personally donating and checking in on your friends, like what could we as a company do for LA? And I'd drawn this palm tree with hands hugging it, and then we started to get people saying like, "Oh, can I order them?" We thought, what can we do to raise money? So we reached out to, I have a stack of these here because we're sending them out. But like, there's this, I don't know if you can see, but it says, "We love LA." And
Mm.
so we reached out to Kuehl, one of my favorite clothing companies, and said, "Would you ever want to sell this shirt?" And they were like, "Sure." So they
Wow.
are selling the shirt, and all the proceeds go to Zibby's bookshop, which is helping
Yeah.
to build libraries, rebuild libraries that don't have the books in them now in the Palisades.
Yeah, it's kind of evolving around. You know what interested me when you talked about when someone engages you, you send out a diagnostic approach, you send out a questionnaire. Have you got any feedback from that? Because I'm sure people have used, say, party planners, event planners, and they just take the order, and you're saying, no, 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 no. Before we take the order, we need to know more about you. Have,
Right.
have, have
Well,
people been
I
wowed by that approach?
I would say a lot of event designers, they do find that they know where you're getting married, your favorite colors, what favorite flowers. I'm not saying that I am alone
Basic.
in
That's
doing that.
basic. That's
But
basic.
but we get into the really crazy nitty-gritty
Yeah.
and function somewhere between your, detail person and also, as I said, your friend, your shrink, your sometimes, and I'm not suggesting you don't have a planner, a floral designer for 100%. Like you
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all those other vendors. I am not
Yeah.
them. And there's nothing more inspiring to me than the incredibly talented people in the industry. There's this conference called Engage, which is a high-end wedding luxury conference started by Rebecca and Catherine, who've been doing it for years. And they've really brought all these talents from the industry from all different levels into it. And what's been amazing is how all these talents in the industry, event designers, photographers,
Wow.
you name it, in bands, how they all inspire each other. And we're all in it together. I would
Yeah.
never tell you to have a wedding without all those people. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you need you need the people, but I'm kind of more, as I said, your editor, you're someone who you go to,
Yeah.
who's you're like, okay, my friend has been in this business forever. And I can fill in the gaps with that the event designer doesn't want to deal. If you're really want to dig into something special to give all the parents or the grandparents, there's some things that, you know, that are out of your, planners, or they're for your rehearsal dinner, which your planner isn't doing because you're just having a dinner at a restaurant and you don't necessarily
Mhm.
want the
Mhm.
budget for so it's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah. It's amazing as you talk through this because I go back to editorial assistant coming in as an editorial assistant and you started from there and you wound your way all the way to where you are today. If you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be? Maybe there's nothing. What would you tell your younger self at
Um,
those points of sitting
right.
there and trying to figure out what's next? What advice would you give?
Well, I would say first of all, I mean, we touched on this before, but just relax, and just when you're in a moment, just be in it. And like you don't need to, after 6 months, if you're not doing something different, you don't need to start freaking out about your career.
Hmm.
Um, but then I would say probably the most important thing I would say is you have one life. And you want to enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't have stressful days, and it doesn't mean you love it. Work is work, you know. But in general, you have to enjoy, and you also have to take care of yourself,
Mm.
And the last line of our book is life is short, celebrate everything. And so I would say, remember that life is short and, you know, try to also exercise, try to see
Mm.
friends. And anyone who says there's a perfect balance, and anyone who you see on Instagram who
Yeah.
has a huge business
Yeah.
and is like crushing it,
Yeah.
they there's always somewhere else they should be. As a mother of three girls, I always should be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or my mind, I'm like, I should be at the soccer game. Oh no, I need to be at this. I need to be with my parents. I need to. So you have to know that, don't get freaked out also about social media, because
Mhm.
people are only putting the things that they want to show.
The good things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So remember that.
I always say, you see on social media, you see the top of the pyramid, but you don't see all of the steps that's getting to the top
Right.
of that. Yes.
People are putting when they were awarded the best, footwear
Oh,
company, whatever it is, they're not putting when they were, nominated but didn't win.
exactly. Exactly. Let me do a quick shout out to some of our frequent listeners. Peter started in Broadway and managing sets and acting and all. Now he's a wealth manager. So like we always look at that. Brent Ridge, medical doctor. Now he has a branding company for kind of a similar version of Martha, and he's a medical doctor in doing that. Jim Moy, who's an attorney in D.C., who was also my neighbor in Saudi Arabia. John Self, frequent listener, started as an editor, now is in executive search, now is into executive coaching. So it always kind of plays back into, and this was kind of the reasons we started the CEO series, so people can understand what you see. There's a lot of underpinnings there. There's a lot of structure under that. So as we begin to close out, and thank you for all the listeners that we have, like, share, and let our friends know we're like 14, 15,000. We want to get that to 50,000. So make sure you help us with that. So as we close out, one of the goals of the show was to bring together esteemed leaders like yourself to talk about these career journeys and all these kinds of things, the twists and turns, and you've given us kind of a master class on that. So what would you like to give us as your closing thoughts on the CEO series as it relates to a career?
I would say that, not every day is perfect. And, but there's also nothing as gratifying as building your business and going for it. And, and you, like, to your point, all those people took a different career. They
Yeah.
switch and they evolve. Everyone's different. For me, I'm doing the same thing I did in fourth grade. I'm taking beads every day, but now I've turned it into a bigger business.
Mm,
So you don't know what tomorrow's going to be, but just enjoy it and surround yourself with good people. Spend the time to make time for your family, your friends, other good people, and just, as I said, I'll leave you off with the last line of my book, which is "Life is short, so celebrate everything."
celebrate everything. Darcy, thank you so much for being a guest. I need you to hold on for a second as we begin to close out. Thank you for all the people that's listening in. Brent, I'm going to follow up with you for sure. It was a pleasure having you on, and as I said, this was a master class that you gave for 45 minutes. So Brent says thank you both for your time today
Thanks,
and
Brent.
sharing so
Now I
much.
need to catch up with you and hear
Yeah,
what you're doing.
yeah. And you tell Teresa that I said hello.
I will.
I will. Okay, good. So thank you so much, and stay online as we begin to close out.
Great.
I
Thank
need to
you.
speak to you offline.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.